Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a fantastic show for you this evening. Robert Hayes, pilot and actor from the movie Airplane that we all know and love, is here. I absolutely love Bob. Cannot wait to have him back here on the show. So buckle up. Flight 209 is now arriving at Gate 8, Gate 9, Gate 10. It's going to be a good show. Before we get started, just a couple quick things. Things are booming within SocialFlight. Please check out socialflight.com and the free mobile apps for Apple and Android devices. You just search on one word, SocialFlight. And we just added, I just checked, over the last week, we just added over 200 new aviation events. So if you want to see what's happening, check out all the destinations, whether it's a museum or a $100 hamburger, you name it, it is all out there. And we also have wings courses that you can take on demand there and get credit with the FAA safety team. We have educational courses that are out there where you can, if you're an AMP or an IA, you can get your renewal online. It's all there. It's all free. Just check out socialflight.com. And also we have our Fly to Win Challenge just a few days away. We're giving away a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset. That is happening on June 1st. And all you have to do is get the app, check in at any airport. You're entered to win. More points get you on the leaderboard, and we just keep doing prize after prize on this. So be sure to check all of that out. Tonight's broadcast is brought to us by Phillips 66 Lubricants, including the Phillips 66 Cross Country 20W50 multi-weight engine oil that I use in my own aircraft, as well as their Victory line of oils with the Lycoming anti-wear additives. They've been a really, really great promoter of general aviation as a whole. They do a lot to help keep all these programs coming to you. And there's a ton of education coming out from them that will really help you with your flying and also maintenance and understanding more about aircraft engines. So now on to tonight's guest. I'm absolutely thrilled to have him with us tonight, my good friend, Bob Hayes. I'll tell you, he is, of course, best known for his role as the pilot Ted Stryker in the classic movie Airplane. But at the same time, since starring in the TV series Angie in the 1970s, even though he's been a household name for that, he is also a pilot, which is something I don't think a lot of people actually knew. And he is instantly recognizable to this day as the face from those television and movie roles from a decades-long career. And most recently, he also hosted an A&E series, Fasten Your Seatbelt. And so I'll tell you, when you hear his history and fun stuff in aviation, it's just great to hang or fly with Bob. So I am thrilled to call him a friend and so glad he could join us tonight here on SocialFlight Live from his beautiful home in Oahu, Hawaii. Please help me welcome to SocialFlight Live, Robert Hayes. Hey!
How was that for timing? Oh, that was good.
I was like the best timing for as a guest, as comedy.
You were waiting for me to pull the little gag, right? And let it just go. Hello, Jeff. Belated happy birthday. I know it was a week ago. We tried.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
That is so wonderful. And for everybody else out there, I have to say, the thing that when it came to my birthday that I asked for was Bob to show up on the show. That was what I wanted. You're my gift, man.
And I'm, as usual, late.
I don't know about that. So how is life out there in beautiful Oahu?
It's just, it's so crappy.
It's beautiful every day, right?
It's awful nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day. It's I just got back from being on the mainland for about a week and a half, and I'm readjusting back to the from the parched desert of the Southwest to the humidity, the wet dish rag in the face when you walk outside, or just move inside your house. It's
No
really
kidding.
hot and humid, but it's really pretty. It's really nice. We've been having some showers, little cloud bursts, and come and go, and then it's sunny, and sometimes see a rainbow, and you see a lot of rainbows over here, which is fun. But it's like you think where you would get a little bored of them, but you don't. I mean, rainbows are So it's so
Yeah.
rainbowish. They're
I
just so
don't I
pretty.
don't I don't think you can get bored of rainbows, but
No,
I mean, I want people to understand you have a fascinating family history. It just blows my mind. Every time we talk, you end up telling me a little bit more about things from your what I mean. There's connections to everything, right? Like Lindbergh buried on Maui and all this. Tell me this. Tell me the story of how you wound up actually in Hawaii,
not
because
the
that's
bank
connected.
robbery. We're not talking about the bank robberies.
No, no, no. Well,
Okay,
no.
okay, okay. Now people are going to be saying, bank, bank robberies? Um, no, no. The whole thing with Lindbergh, I don't want you to get the wrong impression that I didn't actually fly with Lindbergh. I didn't. He wasn't really my grandfather or anything. Uh, First time I ever came here was with my girlfriend Terry, and I came over here about 43 years ago, something like that. And we landed at Honolulu. Never had been to Hawaii ever, and we landed and got out in the airport. It was like, oh, the flowers and all the leis and the aromas of the scents of the flowers are so nice. Uh, I realized today I was talking with a friend of mine this morning, and he was saying, because he hasn't been over here yet, wanted to bring his wife. And he said, tell me, is it just when you land there, it smells so gorgeous? I said, oh man, yeah. And I said, but that was 43 years ago, and I've come here a bunch since then. But there was a period of time that I didn't, some years. And all of a sudden, I remember this airport wasn't this big, was it? Now it's big. And so many more people, it's so much more crowded, which means there's a lot more sweat and I don't know, there's sweat, bad breath, whatever. So you get off the plane and you got all these people breathing on you. With, I don't know. So it doesn't smell quite as good as it did. But boy, that day that I arrived, it still, I'm kidding. It still smells nice, very nice. Uh, but we landed, we got off the plane, got our bags, and then we got on a little twin engine, twin Cessna, and we flew over to Molokai, stopped off at Kalapapa, I think they call it. It's a 3,000-foot cliffs that come down to a spit of land that sticks out, just big half moon sort of chunk that sticks out, and that is the old leper colony.
Hmm.
And we stopped off and had some boxes, medicine and some things, and we dropped that off to them. And then we took off again and flew on to Maui to Kahului, and then dropped off the couple of passengers that were in with us. And I was flying up in the right-hand seat with the pilot the whole time. It was great because I think there all the other seats. It was a little six-seater, I think, and my girlfriend was there and another couple, and so I got to sit up there with him, and that was so fun. He'd say, "Hey, look at this! Oh, look down there!" And people in the back were probably. Then we took off from Kahului and went on to Hana, where we were staying. And there's a little airstrip there for not for big jets. I don't know if they've changed that too. I don't know, but it's I don't think so. So it was the small little airstrip that the original owner, put in when they finally had planes. When they started being able to fly that far. Um, he had a wharf, and I think he had his own ship, and he had the San Francisco Seals, I think, was a minor league baseball team. And when he opened, he bought all that, made a cattle ranch out of it. No, a sugarcane operation out of it. And he made the Hana Ranch, which was this little resort kind of a thing. And he had them come as the first guests. And he brought them over on the ship. And there's a wharf there where the ship docks and everyone gets off. And we landed at the strip next to it, and we had a 1927 flatbed Packard truck pick us up. Had a Surrey on top and little bench seats, and that was the hotel's little thing that just made a loop. We go to Hamoa Beach, go up the little airport, airstrip, and then back to the hotel. Hamoa Beach, back to the hotel, the airstrip. You just make these little circles. And so we just had, oh, that was just, that was magical. You come to Hawaii and it looks so beautiful and so green. And you do, if you do, like I did later on, the 3 hour trip to Hana, which I've probably done 7 times, you drive along the coast and you come around the bend into Hana, and all of a sudden, it's like a magic trick. All of a sudden, everything is so green. It glows green almost. It's so lush and so green.
Wow.
And the first time you see that, when you come around the corner like that, you, oh, wow, that's so great. And now it's, just very, very crowded, but it's still so beautiful
That's
there.
awesome. Aviation is a really big out there because in terms
Well,
of being able to get between the islands, right?
yeah, that was Hamoa Beach was James A. Michener's favorite. He said, it's funny, my favorite South Pacific beach in the islands is on a North Pacific island. It's Hamoa Beach on Maui. And then just past that, a couple of miles past that, is Lindbergh's favorite place on the planet. And that was in Hana and Hamoa Beach. And right there is the little church. You turn left going towards the ocean, and then you have to kind of wind your way back in. And it doesn't really have big signs and, hey, Lindbergh, come on in right over here. It's none of that. It's just a little sign that has a little church. And so you go in there and you find his grave. And I think somebody left a little model plane, just a small one, only about this big, a little plane right there, which people probably do occasionally, and someone takes it later on and someone else puts another one back. It's kind of magical. And the church is so plain, so simple, small, bare bones, a little
Wow.
simple little church. It's just gorgeous. And no wonder he wanted to be, I mean, if you actually are able to sit up once in a while out of the old dirt and look around, you wouldn't find a more beautiful place than that.
That's wonderful. Do
Yeah.
you remember your first flight in an airplane in your whole life?
My first flight.
I stumped you on this one.
Yeah. Well, I
Well, let
remember
me
when I
rephrase.
was,
What's the earliest thing you do remember having to do in an
well,
airplane?
well, I remember when I was 9, I remember because we did all of our traveling. Dad was in the Marine Corps and we traveled by car 15 times across country, going to
Wow.
duty station, Cherry Point, North Carolina, and our home base before I was born. They decided it was Newport Beach, Corona, Laguna, that area in Southern California. And Dad's home base was El Toro in Irvine. So we when we went over, Dad was stationed in Izmir, Turkey. So we all were stationed there. What happens to him happens to all of us. So just about. So uh, we we took the SS Constitution over, which is the same one that Grace Kelly took to go over to marry Prince Rainier when they finally were getting married. It was the same ship, and it was about within a year, same year or within a year, I think, of when she went. So that was kind of cool. I didn't know anything about it at the time, but I found that out later, and I thought that was pretty neat. But we landed in Naples, Italy, and then in Naples we flew an R4D, which the Marines call an R4D, and in the Air Force they call it DC-3.
Oh,
And we flew that over to Izmir, from Naples, Italy to Izmir, Turkey. And Dad was co-pilot. His boss, he was lieutenant colonel, and his boss was a Navy captain, and Captain Clark. And so we flew over there. His son Sammy sat in the pilot seat. I got to sit in the co-pilot seat, and we put our hands on the wheel like we're flying. And you're thinking, "Oh God, you gotta be careful because we don't want to crash." And we don't realize the autopilot's on. So we were just the little decoration Christmas balls hanging on it. And that was my and it was set up. It wasn't set up like with all the rows of seats. It was like a troop transport, like parachutes. So it was just benches along the seat. So we all sat on the benches when they took off and landed, and we had our two dachshunds with us, and they were underneath the seats, and just wondering what the hell's going on. That was the first flight that I remember. I don't remember if there was one before that. And then my first flight in a little private plane was in uh, in Bellevue, Nebraska, at Offutt Air Force Base. It was uh, the end of the runway uh, where the Missouri River is, down that end down there. They had the base stables, and they were private. It wasn't a rental stables. It was the people that were stationed there could have horses. If they had horses, we could have the horses in the stables. And I was a stable boy there for a while in high school, first year of college. And a guy had a Weimaraner. He was a captain, I think, or a major. And he had a Weimaraner named Fraulein that he used to keep out there. And I would go out and, you know, play with the dog while I'm feeding and bedding down the horses and water them and everything. And he said, "Do you want to go up in a plane?" And I said, "Okay." I didn't ask Dad or anything. I just said, "Okay." And it was a little Piper J3, little tandem,
Little
with the
cub.
not a wheel, a yoke, a stick, you
Yeah.
know, and 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 it was in the wintertime, so it was chilly. And I just remember how cool that was. Dad was really disappointed, I think. One, just because of the safety. Who is this guy? Is he a good pilot? And, that kind of stuff. And I think maybe the other thing was that he always wanted to be the first person to take me up in a plane
Mm.
and be a fighter pilot. And and had I known that, I definitely would have waited because that would have been cool. But anyway, so that was really neat. I always loved that little plane just because of that flight. So that was fun.
Which came first, the acting or the airplane with your own learning to fly?
Oh, the acting. I stumbled into it in college when we transferred back. Dad went overseas, and I stayed with Mom when we came back to California, San Diego area. And because we had horses by that time, so I stayed home and I took care of the horses while going to school and lived at home and had my '62 Chevy Bel Air that I got in Nebraska, and you drove that when we drove all the cars and everything back. And while he was gone that year, um, I found a bus, and Mom came down and co-signed for me, and I got my '66 Volks bus, and
Is
I
that the
still have.
one you sent me pictures of already?
Yeah, I still have them. It was 57 years ago now that I bought him. February 20th, 1968.
I believe
Yeah,
you sent me a picture of that one. Yeah,
yeah, the blue and white one. Buster.
yeah.
So when he came back, came back and he was stationed at Camp Pendleton up in North San Diego County. So we were in El Cajon, suburb of San Diego. So when he came back, got everything packed up in the house. They moved up there, and I moved into my bus. And while he was coming, as when I got it actually, and during the time between when I got it and when he came home, I was out there cutting, getting plywood, and building a little cabinet and a little bed into it. And I moved into a bus, and then I lived in and out of my bus for 2 years while I was going to school. And then going to school back there at a little college down there in San Diego, Grossmont College, everything was taken. I was late. I was a transfer student, and everything was taken except for a beginning acting class. So I took that so I could get in. And it was wound up being a lot of fun. So I just
You have
stuck
to
with it.
decide. How'd your parents feel about that?
Well, that's what I was doing. My dad was actually an amazing guy. I thought he was going to be really pissed off. Actor? What? My son wear a tutu? What? Oh God, what is it? Not that at all. He said, "You do what you want to do. You don't do what somebody tells you to do." And I thought, well, shoot, I can't argue with him. I was going to have a big argument with him, stand up for what I wanted to do. And how can you argue with that? That was just really great. So,
Sounds like you had a wonderful dad and a great relationship with him.
well, his dad, John Sr., was Texan, and they were, he was about 6 foot 6'1", something like that. Dad was 6'3", and Grandpa was just, he had a couple of brothers, and Ray and Arch, and they were from Texas. And he'd say, Hayes, where are you from? And he said, Texas. Just kind of like Gary Cooper, just quiet, didn't speak much. And he said, no, 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 no. I mean, Hayes, is that English? Is it Irish? And he said, Texan. All he'd ever admit to. Yeah. And he was just quiet. And Dad was kind of the same way. He was a little more fun, I think. I mean, Grandpa was just kind of just really quiet and kind of. But man, he was a neat guy. I sure loved him. But Dad was also the kind of the same way. And he said to me one time, uh, it's just kind of like life, uh, little quotes or little things to help guide you through life. And he said, the way I look at it is you just do the best you can. And if somebody likes what you do, they'll tell somebody about it. In
Yeah.
other words, you don't have to brag about stuff. You can just do the best you can. And if people like it, they'll notice it and they'll pass the word around. Well,
Wow.
that's not really how actors work. I mean, if you look at them, they're all loudmouths. Did you see me in this? Did you see me in this? Oh, have you seen my latest film? Well, enough about me. What do you think about me? It's that kind of I and I never could do that comfortably. I remember in San Diego, and I was at my home theater from Grossmont, was the Old Globe Theater, and I was walking down the street, and we were rehearsing a play, and I was walking down the street, and a guy I knew said, "Hey, Bob," and he looked both ways and ran across the street, and he said, "Hey, I hear you're opening up this Tuesday night. You got a show opening." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, why didn't you tell anybody about it?" And he said, "Why didn't you tell anybody about it? I mean, how are they going to find out?" I said, "Well, how'd you find out?" He said, "Well, somebody told me about it." And I said, "There you go." So I've never been comfortable with that. And yet you have to do it. You're pushed to do that. So I kind of um, I've learned how to do it. And of course, I feel really stupid doing it. You always want to go take a shower afterwards. Maybe I'm
Did
exaggerating a little bit, not too much. I mean, it's a weird biz. And here's Dad, distinguished flying cross, and he went to this I guess it was an offshoot of the Naval Academy that they had in Long Beach during World War II. And I don't know when they started it or how long it lasted, but I know it was going on then.
Mhm.
And so he went through that, and I said, "Well, how'd you get in the Marines?" And he said, "Yeah, well, you go through that thing, and then when you graduate, then they said you want to be in the Marines or the Navy, because the Marines are a department of the Navy." And he said, "Which one pays more?" And they said, "The Marines." And he said, "Well, I'll take it." Well, I find out later, just a few years ago, my cousin, one of his cousins, my first cousin once removed, whatever that would be, she was doing research on Dad and Uncle Don and World War II exploits and family histories and stuff. And she found out that when you go through that little academy there, you have to be in the top 10%. And only then do you get to make a choice which one to be in. So that's what Dad didn't tell me about that.
Is
you
that,
know.
yeah, he was
In
in
other
South
words, he
10%.
just never tooted his own horn. When he
Yeah.
was in Vietnam, the general called him in, and here he's a bird colonel, and the general calls him in and says, "John, uh, dang it, you're up for general." And Dad said, "Yeah, I know. I'm well aware of that." And he said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And he said, "Well, I figured, you're kind of busy. We have this thing called a war that's going on right now. And it seems like that's the most important thing is that we got a lot of work to do." And he said, "Well, crap. Well, I wrote this letter up, a commendation, and I've sent it off to the Pentagon for the review board. And I don't think it's going to get there in time, but I sent it anyway. And here are the other copies," because there was some other guy that was just a brown nose. And he said, "I don't want him seeing it. So keep all the copies yourself. Don't file those." And sure enough, the brown nose found out and came in and said, "Would you write me one? Would you write me one? Come on, would you write me one?" So then he had to write him one too. I think that guy made general because
Wow.
it takes that certain hue on the nose, to really, sometimes that's what will get you that promotion, I guess. But Dad was just so non-self promoting. And I got a letter. Mom got a letter, and I have a copy of it. I have the photograph that I took of it, um, from a three-star general, a lieutenant general, that he flew Dad's wing when he was in VMF 533. And he said that he had just found out. This is about 6 days after Dad died, and he just found out. And he said that he was the greatest pilot that he ever flew wing on. And I mean, it was on and on and on about how glowing it was. And I will never forgive the Marine Corps for not making John Hayes my idol, a general officer. That was like, that's the kind of thing that people would say about Dad.
Yeah.
That was just the kind of guy he was. And
Wow.
a part of it is just because of his just straight, you know, no BS, didn't suffer fools, and just get the work done. But he was so serious that when he was funny, it was really funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're going to tell a joke, everyone would stop, like E.F. Hutton. They want to hear because he never tells jokes. So when he tells one, it's like really funny. Anyway,
How did your family feel like react to Airplane when you did the movie? Was he still around?
yeah, I took him to the screening. I introduced him to people at the Directors Guild when we had a screening. I had screenings everywhere. That thing was so popular. Everybody wanted to see it. And I introduced him to Peter Graves, he and Mom. And Peter was a big guy, tall guy, 6'2" or 6'3" or something. And Dad, and then my little 5'2" mama. And I said, "Peter, I wanted to introduce you to my folks. This is my daddy, Colonel." I thought that would be kind of neat. I was proud of him. "This is my dad, Colonel John Hayes, and my mom, Evie Hayes. And Mom, Dad, this is Peter Graves." And that was really cool. And they shake hands, and if there's no small talk, then there's nothing to talk about. What do you talk about? And I could tell there was a kind of a lull because they'd already used up the words that they had. And so I said, "So, Peter, how you been?" And he said, "Fine, fine. Yeah, I've been kind of having a hankering for little boys lately." And I saw my dad kind of go, "What?" And my mom, and I turned to him and I said, "No, no, no, you'll see in the movie. It's a joke. You'll see in the movie." And so then they saw that. And I said, "What'd you think of my flying?" And he went, "Yeah." The scans the instruments ad nauseum, like it said in the script. I think at first they had it ad infinitum, and then it became ad nauseum. And they had, when I was supposed to be checking the different controls, the first draft had it, um, uh, we got, oh shoot, I'm trying to think of some instruments now because I'm thinking of the joke. But anyway, he said a couple of names of some instruments here and there. We got the radio, we got that, bass, treble. So that was that, and it wound up being wash, soak, rinse, spin. So that's what it wound up being. Originally, it was bass, treble, mix, and uh, then oh gosh,
I mean, your dad must have gotten all the inside jokes on all of that, obviously.
oh
Did you
yeah.
have did you have input to some of that when you were filming or working on the script and did you make
Oh,
any
this
changes?
was all the boys. This was the boys. They're the geniuses behind it, and they took. It was like, I'm sorry, I keep bumping this little table. They had about 5 years of rejections, and each time they were rejected, the script was rejected, then they would just go back and polish a little bit more, a little bit more, and it was so tight. It was just so tight, and the only thing was Steve Stucker, who played Johnny. I could make a
Yeah.
hat or a brooch or. Hey, Johnny, how about some coffee? No, thanks. That always gets me. Uh, he was in their theater group called the Kentucky Fried Theater
Right.
that started when they were at Madison, Wisconsin, at University of Madison, University of Wisconsin, Madison. And uh, and then they took that out to with a truckload of the stuff that they had and brought that out to LA and started that. And he was in that group, and he was everything you saw in camera. That's him, just you know, flamboyant. He was a concert pianist, an actual concert pianist.
Wow.
Uh, he would do an Elton John impersonation and play it great. And anyway, they would call him up and they'd say, uh, Stephen, here's the line. What would Johnny say? And then, Heath, there's a fire in the barn, or it looks like a big Tylenol, or make a hat, make a brooch. There's a sale at Macy's. How about some coffee? No, thanks. I mean, all of those things, those responses basically were him. Maybe the
Wow.
coffee, no thanks, was the writers, the guys, the boys. Then Al White and Norm Gibbs were the two black dudes, and they had worked up a whole routine. And Al had gone and gotten library books about black languages and Ebonics and all of these different things. And uh, he told me that, and he said that the original script was uh, their dialogue was she mofo, she mofo, she mofo, and they said, can we change this dialogue? And they said, please, we're three white Jewish guys from Wisconsin. We don't know any of that, please. So they came up with that. No, they don't no, drag through Greece. And so they did all of that. And then they worked with Barbara Billingsley so that she would know, something to say.
She
They
was a
wrote,
riot. She
she was
was
great. She was great. The original was supposed to be Harriet Nelson from
really.
Ozzie and Harriet. Yeah. And she turned it down because of I got to meet her once. She was the sweetest thing in the world. And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry I turned it down, but I was just afraid of the language. But oh, I'm so sorry I turned that down." But Barbara was just, my God, how perfect was that?
Yeah.
The original co-pilot was supposed to be Pete Rose, and they figured, well, Pete is always in the playoffs, and if not World Series, he's always in the playoffs. And that's when we're going to be filming, so that's going to get in the way. So then they thought, okay, we got to find somebody else, and they got Kareem. And how perfect was Kareem?
He was amazing.
Just
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, what was it like for you to work underneath them or with them with that whole crew?
the writers or
Well, both the writers. I mean, yeah. I mean,
the
from
writer,
your
director,
yeah,
creators,
yeah.
they were Jerry and David Zucker and Jim Abrams, and Jerry was the youngest. David is about a year or so older, and Jim is about a year or so older. Their dads they were neighbors on the same street, and their dads had been in business together at one point. So they grew up knowing each, and they would do this stuff when they were growing up. And then when they got to school, they were at the University of Wisconsin, uh, and and then they created this thing together. So that it was them all the way along. They knew each other so well that when they'd come up, we're going to do a scene, and the three would come up, and one of them would start the sentence, another one would do the middle of the sentence, and the other one would finish the sentence. They knew exactly what they were all talking about. And I guess they used to do that for fun, but it sort of became just a part of them. They would talk, and and it was totally understandable. It's not like I'm confused here. You're all talking. They were all talking exactly. It's like three people said exactly the same sentence, but that was the first sentence, the middle of the sentence, and the last part of the sentence. It was just so great. It was so funny because it would make you laugh too. And
Yeah.
then
I mean,
David and Jim would sit in a little booth, or if we were on location, they'd sit in a little trailer and they'd have the monitor. And then Jerry was out by the camera. And so then this was before all those monitors and things. It was 1979 when we shot it. And so that stuff was just beginning. Now they got the monitors right next to the camera, but then it was just a separate thing. And they'd have the monitor taped off because what the camera is seeing is this is what you're going to see in the movie house on the film, but the camera is seeing this much. And
mhm.
so you can see if somebody's coming into a scene and they don't quite make, you say, okay, here they come, but they don't make it in, and they're supposed to be in the scene, but they don't make it. Say, okay, that's no good for us because they didn't make it in all the way. Oh, okay, we got to redo it. Or something comes in, they can see it coming in and they can adjust the camera for it. Or, uh-oh, cut, they're coming in with the boom or whatever. So they put masking tape, black gaffer's tape, on the screen, so there was just what you're going to see in the movie theater, so they
Wow.
wouldn't be distracted with all that stuff. And then Jerry was out there next to the camera, and he was saying action and cut and seeing the performances. Then they would talk about it, and then they would say, okay, let's move on, we got that one, let's move on, or can we go again, and here's why. And it was so great. Never a problem with that. It was just, I mean, it was just perfect. It was just so funny.
Well,
Yeah.
this was like one of the first movies as a comedy that wasn't kind of like making jokes. It was played straight.
Yeah.
And even though it was hilarious. Well, so I mean, what was that like as in your position as an actor
Well,
dealing with straight lines? And I mean, Peter
that's
Graves,
what,
everybody's dealing with this.
yeah, and that's what they wanted, when people would come in and trying to be funny, and they'd say, no, we don't want that. I said, but it's a comedy. I said, no, the one thing that we can tell you, they would say to the actor, is we want you to play it seriously. And I kind of had that in my mind from stuff that I had done, when I was in the theater and kind of training and then on stage, doing, Old Globe stuff. And so it just blended perfectly to me, made all the sense in the world. And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Lloyd, and he was trying to do some funny stuff. And they said, Lloyd, we just want you to, you know. I remember one scene, Julie and I were in the cockpit, and Lloyd and Bob Stack were in the tower. And we had a little rehearsal room over at Paramount. And so we were all in the same room, just had tape on the floor. So we would say the lines and we could, you know, have rehearsal to feel it out and get the tempo with us, everything. And the first guy that they thought of when they wrote this script was Bob Stack,
Hmm.
Elliot Ness, and that's who they wanted. The very first person they said, if we can get him, that's what the whole thing is about. Is that's Elliot Ness thing, and uh, and they had to kind of fill him in on it, and he got it right away. But, you know, at first he was trying to do something funny. And it was like, no, be Elliot Ness, be straight. And then he got it. And it was like, you know, then Lloyd, he was wandering around that day and he was just really, something was bugging him. And he finally said, well, what's the, what are we doing here? and Bob turned to him and said, oh, come on, Lloyd. They just want us to be us. And Lloyd kind of scowled a bit and went, oh. And then he just kind of thought about it. And then he's a very good actor. And he got it. And then he really blossomed with it. But it was just do it seriously. There was something that, it's an old story that I heard when I was in college. And it was one of my favorite stories. I tell people, I tell young actors when they ask me for any advice or anything. And it's about listening. It is, oh shoot, Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. It was about Walter Matthau when he was 18 in New York, and he was in the Yiddish theater. And there was a scene where he was down left, and there was another actor down right, and the person that speaks is down center. And he was going for it. It was his time in the spotlight. And he was just, and just. And the guy over on stage right was trying to steal the scene. And he was listening and reacting and all of that. And Matthau was down left, standing in the corner. And he was so fascinated by these monkeys jumping all over the place. He just was staring at one and then the other. And the entire audience could not take their eyes off of Walter Matthau. And they didn't give a crap about these two guys. It's the focus. It's just really being so focused and listening. If you actually listen to what the person's saying, that's so much more interesting than if you see the eyes rolling back because you're thinking, okay, I hear those words. They're almost the end of their line. I think that my line's coming. What's my line? My line is going to, oh, yes. And then I will go into, and then you say your line. That is about as boring as you can do it.
Yeah.
If you just are fascinated about what they're saying, your line's going to come out as a response to it.
That's so fascinating.
And that's kind of what this was. I told the boys, my approach to the whole thing was, I said, I'm the audience on the set, and I'm kind of like the anchor in the center. I'm, I hate to say normal, but I'm almost normal in the show, and I'm just reacting. When I say the cockpit, what is it? Well, it's a little room in the pilot sits, but that's not important right now. What? Or when I say, Shirley, you can't be serious. I am serious. No, call me Shirley. And it's just little things like that. I'm wondering, what this is a wacky world. I was kind of just reacting to, this is a different kind of flying altogether. This is a different kind of flying. And I looked at them, and they never noticed this, but I was looking at them, and my eyelid, my eyebrow just kind of went up, and I was like, what was that? And they didn't notice it until the next day in the dailies when your head's about 40 feet tall. And they came running back after lunch when they were over watching dailies. And they said, oh, God, and then that scene, then your eye kind of went up, and it was perfect, like a punctuation for that whole thing. And, that did you mean to do that? I said, well, it just happens. When, if someone says something and you go, what? Your eye just kind of goes up sometimes with some people.
I'm going to look for that the next time that I watch it, which it will be soon. Now I have something to look for. I think it's almost that Airplane came out at a pivotal time when that overacting was like time to stop. And even though that was a comedy, sort of following that, all of a sudden it was like, well, you don't have to overact. You have to do what you said, which is actually be in the moment, be in the scene.
I have friends that do that. They do stand-up comedy, and they do different, act in comedies, sitcoms, and whatever. And there's just different kind of a thing. They have a different approach than I have. And and sometimes when I try to, I'll try to do stuff with them. They want me to do a little sketch with them or something, and you're trying to do it, and it's just it's so uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right, and it doesn't come off well because I just can't do it like them. You know, they're good at that, and I don't do it that well.
Well,
But
it sure
but
worked perfectly in airplane.
there were certain films that came out, and some of them were really successful, and they do that, but they do it well. You can. It depends on how you do it. Even if you do bad acting well, it can be very funny. It turns into actually uh, a case of good acting, of a good performance of something that succeeds at what you want. But it's almost like a spoof. It can become a spoof of bad actors. And but there are actors. The way I always describe it is there are actors that have this astral projection of yourself, and their astral projection, when they say something and it's supposed to be funny, the astral projection looks out at the audience and says, "It's funny, huh? That's funny." And with mine, I had an astral projection, and when I would say something, the audience would laugh. Mine looked at the audience like, "Well, what are you laughing at? This is serious stuff," and made him laugh more. That whole energy makes him laugh more. That's what the whole film did. When you
Yeah.
have that serious thing on there, it makes people laugh even more. And that's what Leslie, with that mellifluous voice of his, that's an amazing voice. And he was so silly and he was so serious. And that made it just, oh, he's very funny, very
You
funny.
know who else was really played that well was Julie Haggerty.
Oh, Julie, that was her first film. Yeah. And she's
Oh,
just done
really?
like one little thing off Broadway, I think. Uh, they were looking for, there was a very famous actress that came in dressed in a 40s stewardess outfit, and she's very well known. And she came in and she did the whole thing, and it wasn't exactly what they were looking for. Then she was making demands of, and we'll have to cut this line, we'll have to cut this line, we have to cut this, take this out. And they were looking at her like, okay, well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And then she left and they went, wow, that was so wrong. Never mind about that. They couldn't find Julie and they couldn't find Ted Stryker. And all the people they had, that were being pushed at him for Ted Stryker, it didn't make any sense to them. Or the people came in and they didn't quite, it wasn't quite right. Something wasn't quite right.
Yeah.
And they were going up in the elevator in New York to see a batch of actresses in New York. And they happened to be on the elevator with Julie, and she didn't know who they were. And I guess they figured, oh, here's another one coming up, right? And by the time they got off the elevator, they thought, oh my God, she's so perfect. I wonder if she can act, if she can do the role. Can she read the lines? And so then she goes in with all these other women. They go in the other door, and then she walks in, and that's them. And she's kind of, oh God, Then she does it, and it's like, we found Julie, we found Elaine, we found her. And then I had my agent had just brought a new agent in his office, and she had worked with Howard Koch, who was the exec producer. He used to be the head of uh, production for Paramount, president of production, and they assigned him to Airplane, to the boys, to guide them because they'd never made a movie. They'd say, okay, we're going to go in for a close up, and they'd say, what's a close up? Uh, okay, we're going to have a medium close up, and then we're going to come back and we're going to rack focus over to here. What did you just say? What does that mean? We have no idea what you're talking about. So they had, the DP, who was Joe Byrock. Joe Byrock was made director of photography on It's a Wonderful Life by my all-time favorite director, Frank Capra. And so we got to work with him. So that's who they had to help guide them through. So anyway, she calls Howard up and says, Howard, I got the guy for you. I got your Ted Stryker. He said, well, bring him in. So she sent over the picture and bio and took me in, and I met him and the boys, and we all got along really well. And they said, okay, well, let's do a reading. I did the reading for them, and they liked that. And they said, well, let's screen test you. And we have this other girl we're thinking about. And they put Julie and me together. I didn't know they already had Julie. And so we tested together, and they said they loved my spit take. It was the one in the hospital. Uh, Lieutenant Hurwitz, he thinks he's Ethel Merman, that whole thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I was drinking, I asked her a question, I was drinking the water, and then she says the answer, and I do a spit take, and they love the spit take. That's what they said. I don't know if that was true. But anyway, so that was it. And then they cast me and said, we got our people. And the people at Paramount were saying, but he's just one of our sitcom actors. He's just one of our little sitcom. You don't want him. So that was, thank you very much, my studio. We're making money with this show, but they, anyway. So Leslie Nielsen, when they went to him with Leslie Nielsen, the casting director said, Leslie Nielsen, that's who you can't get until the night before you started shooting. Then you got to cast him. And so then they said, well, that's who we want. They went, oh, all right. And then after we started shooting, and the production went in to watch dailies. And all of a sudden, I think maybe it was, Shirley, you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. And when they saw that and everybody was laughing, they said, I get it. Now I get it. And then they went along with it. And then it destroyed every box office record everywhere.
No kidding. What was your favorite part of Airplane?
Getting up in the morning and going to work. It was so fun. I couldn't wait to do it. Even if I was exhausted, I couldn't wait to go. It was so great. I just loved being there. My first feature film.
And if you had to pick a part of the actual movie, what would it be? That you think that you love like the most?
That I like doing or like watching or what?
Yeah, if you had to go through and say, hey, here's your favorite scene for everybody to see.
Oh man. I don't know. I love Leslie and Peter Graves right behind the cockpit. He says, how long before you can land? I can't tell. You can tell me, I'm a doctor. No, I mean, I just don't know. Well, how long before you can land? Well, can't you take a guess? And he said, no, not for 2 or 3 hours. You can't take a guess for 2 or 3 hours. No, I mean, we can't land for 2 or 3 hours. That just gets me every time I watch it. But so many things do. I watched it recently. It was on, and I thought, well, shoot, we're going to do the thing here with Jeff and the gang. And so I want to just look at some of it again. And I was looking at stuff where my focus would be here normally, where everybody's focus is. I started watching other people and just other things, and I was having brand new laughs at it.
That's awesome.
The thing that I was there when they filmed it. I never noticed it in the 4 screenings that I went to until after the 4th one, because a friend of mine told me about it, and I never noticed it. And that's when David says to Jerry, where's the hand truck? It's over there. And then the nose of the plane goes and crashes through the window. And if you watch, all those are stunt people because of the glass flying, obviously. And if you watch, they run, and a woman has a baby. It's obviously a doll wrapped in a pink blanket. And she goes, throws it up in the air and runs. And I never noticed that until the 5th time. The 4th or 5th screening, I think, and that's when I finally noticed it because my friend told me about it. There's so many things to see in there.
There is. You could watch it over and over and over and catch another thing every single time. And my favorite's the one over my shoulder, my buddy here. You see who's doing this?
Otto. I've got a friend that gave me one of those, and I left it. It was at my ex-wife's. She was having a little birthday gathering. I mean, I was back there. Gina and I were back there for something, and we went to the party, and he had all these pictures. He set it on the, there he goes. And it's got a fan. Does that one have the fan inside of it?
Yes.
And it blows it up. And
Yes.
what I wanted to do was I wanted to bring it back with me and set it in the seat next to me and have someone take a picture on the plane. I just thought that,
Absolutely. No kidding.
and I keep forgetting to go get it. But actually, this last time she wasn't there, so I couldn't go get it. But I will get it. My friend Tony gave it to me.
You got to send me a picture when you get that one.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a light inside of it too. I think.
Yes, there is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, auto glows.
Auto.
Yes,
What are you going to name him? What are we going to name him? I said you could call him Otto, and they said Otto, and I said, yeah, it's an homage to Jonathan Winters, and he had a character in one of his sketches.
You came up with auto?
Well, I said this, and whether they were going to do that anyway, I will never know probably.
I'm
But
giving you credit.
I said that Jonathan Winters says, "Uh-oh, there goes uh-oh," and it was just the way Jonathan Winters did. It was very funny, and I said, "Yeah, an homage to him. Call him Otto." And then of course it's autopilot, and they wound up calling him that, but I have no idea if that was in their mind, and that we were all having that same thought at the same time. I don't know, but they are just so ridiculously creative, those guys.
It's
So,
absolutely fantastic. It's awesome, and I love it. I have a request for you.
yeah.
So we have something we do at the end of most of our Social Plate live
It's
shows.
like I thought I was going to sleep like this.
He doesn't like this part of the show. So Social Plate Fast Five. It's 5 questions that we ask. So would you be cool with that? It's just general questions about you. It's not a quiz. It's
Yeah.
like there's no wrong answers. It's like almost opinion on.
Okay.
But about you. It's all about you. You cool with that?
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. All right.
The floor is ever so slightly sloped, and I keep running into and bumping the the little table that's on. So that's why I keep shoving myself to get back here.
Hey, before we even do the Fast Five, I want to shout out here because right over your shoulder, everyone can see your paintings, and I want to say this. You sent me this. I absolutely love this. This is getting framed and put up, and it is. You make the most beautiful paintings of where you live. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you, but
So show me what's over your shoulder. Show us what your latest thing is there.
well, I'm working on it still. It's a little. There's a little wave. There's a little wave in it. It's just some just some stuff. This one actually. If I can dig it out, this is one of my. This was, I think, my second wave I did, but that's kind of.
That's gorgeous.
I like waves, as you can tell. Waves and clouds, I like. But that one is kind of. If Pipeline and Chupo had a child, that's the wave. So.
That's awesome.
See, that's what happens when you take something apart like that. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So,
Dad,
you ready? You ready for this?
I don't know.
I promise I will not traumatize you.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, Robert Hayes from Airplane the Movie. This is your Social Place Fast Five. 5 questions to get people to get to know you just a little bit more. You start with a really easy one. Question number 1, out of all the kind of flying memories that you have, is there one that just kind of sticks out? That it could be from regular flying and aviation, or it could be from Airplane the Movie. What's the first thing that pops into your head?
One of my favorite things.
Favorite memory?
I was getting an add-on for my helicopter rating, and I had a buddy that we used to give each other. We'd try to up gifts to each
Nice.
other, and we were both single, so we didn't have, and weren't divorced, so we didn't have alimony, and we didn't, making money. We actually had some money, and we would goof off and play with it. And so he said he had a helicopter he was flying, and he said, "I want you to get your rating." And I said, "Okay, so that sounds fun, actually." He said, um, I'm going to give you lessons. I'm going to pay for the lessons until you can, I think it was till you can solo, I believe, or maybe it was some other step. Anyway, so we go out, and this is an Army helicopter instructor that spent his career in the Army instructing, helicopter pilots, and then he got out, and now he's a private helicopter, General Aviation. And so he takes me out to this training area out in north of the valley, and he says, "Okay, little asphalt strip, crumbly kind of little old thing. You got to lift up, hover 2 feet, the skids 2 feet off the ground. You go forward, fly the pattern, come back, and then you set your angle, come in." And that was a miles per hour gauge, and it was about 65 miles per hour. You come in, hover 2 feet over the ground, and then you just set it down. And so when you can do that, and he had me do some other things too, but that was the main thing. He said, then you're ready to solo. And so I did it. And then when I did it, and he said, God, it was just right on. It was very good. And as we're flying back, he said, in all of the years that I taught in the Army and this general aviation stuff, no one has ever done that. It was 2.7 hours of training that I'd had. And he said, no one's ever done it that fast. And so I said, don't tell Joel, because I want him to keep paying. and so then we're sitting there, and Joel came out, and we were going to go do something afterwards. So he came and picked me up. And as we're sitting there, I thought, I cannot bear that. I said, I think it'd be more fun to tell him. I said, tell him. He said, tell him? I said, yeah, go ahead, tell him. He said, I told Bob that in all of my years, I've never seen anyone do it that fast. And I saw Joel's face with, oh, it was like, I wanted to be the one that did it. That competition thing you always had. But it was so fun, and it was so fun for him to say that, and that he really liked what I was doing. It was really good. And you just can cut the engine. We would do this a lot of times, just to come down, cut the engine, glide in, sit down, whoosh, pull the collective up, and just boot, and then just set down on the ground. And by that time, it's already cooling off. And there was an old guy that flew out to the oil rigs, and that's the way he would always come in his last flight. He would come in, cut the engine, and just auto rotate down and land, and then get out, and he's already got everything else shut down. That was, I don't know, that was just
when emergency preparedness is your normal operations, you are a well-prepared pilot.
Yeah. And he also had me do it with, the throttle is on the collective, and you got your cyclic and your pedals here, right? But they have governors. And he said, we're not going to use the governor. I don't want you using the governor. The entire training that I had, 30 some odd hours. And he said, I want you ready when you take your test, so that it doesn't catch you by surprise. Because he knew so many guys that the instructor let him use the governor, and then you just are yanking on the collective, but you don't ever have to time it with your, motorcycle speed, throttle. And then they say, okay, your test is tomorrow, so here's how you do it. And then they go in, and the sweat coming down like when I'm trying to land the plane, so that was pretty cool too. But that was really fun. That little J3 Cub was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go to number two then.
One thing that I would like to have been able to do.
All right, question number 2 then. What is your favorite memory from making Airplane the movie?
Oh God. Oh man, that's just well, the dance sequence was a lot of fun.
The Saturday Night Live dance sequence.
Yeah. Uh,
You talked to Travolta about that, didn't you?
yeah, after we had shot that, and then Donna Pescow, who was Angie in the series Angie that I was doing, and I was her husband Brad, and she took me over because she was in Saturday Night Fever, and they were friends, so she took me across the lot to where he was filming Urban Cowboy, which was that was the film he was working on, and we just got along great. He's such a neat guy. He really is a great guy, and obviously you know that he loves flying, and so we were just talking about that, and I was telling him all the scenes, and they'd yell out, "Okay, John, we're back," from lunch. And he'd start to go, and I said, "Oh, there's one other scene." He said, "What?" And then I would describe the sex scene, and then he's laughing, and I'm laughing, and he's just, "Okay, John, come on, we're back." And he started to go, and I said, "Oh, one more scene." And he said, "What?" And this was about 5 scenes, and then finally I said, "Oh, I got to tell you one more." And he said, "What?" And it was the dance sequence, and I thought, I don't know. I said, "I'll tell you later." And so then he went in. Finally, I think they were screaming at me because they didn't want to scream at him. But it was just fun. Everything about that was fun. You loved being there. The crew was so great, and the boys were great, and we just laughed and we enjoyed ourselves, and we just had a great time.
That's
And
so
it was my
wonderful.
first feature film, and I mean, I was doing a TV show, a series, and I was, like one of the leads, you know. So I kind of was having the experience of that. But this was a movie and had the chair and your name was on it, and it was cool, and it
Wow,
was really fun.
that's
So,
so
so
cool.
it's just hard to. One of the hardest was the scene on the beach with the water because there was October, November, something. It was starting to get chilly, and the water was cold for whatever reason. That current was cold that day, so that was harsh. But yeah, gosh, I
Very.
mean, and afterwards with the people, friends calling me up and saying, "Hey, I saw a trailer for the film. Those are all the jokes, right?" And I said, "No."
Not even 1/100th.
Yeah.
Wow.
So everything about it was just so fun. It's just so
So,
fun.
so cool. All right.
Yeah.
So then question number 3, that airplane movie launched you and into like common household name. Everyone on the planet knows you to this day. What was a memory you have of like life kind of changing, like you doing something and all of a sudden everybody knows you
I
after
didn't know what. Yeah, I was the night that I went and saw it with my girlfriend. That was Terry, my girl that I went to Hawaii with, and we went to a place in Westwood Village. We saw at the Village Theater, and then we went over to the Old World Restaurant, and that was there were a couple of those around, but that was the one we went in there. My friend that I'd done a TV movie with, we were at the Old Globe together. He came down from San Francisco for the Shakespeare Festival, and we met and became friends. So he was working, as actors do, between jobs as a waiter. And so he said, "Yeah, okay, let's go in the back in the corner where a little table is out of the way so they can't see us." And he got a little small little split of champagne, so we each had a little taste, and we could toast it. And some people, two couples came in, and the guy was looking at me, and I was so unused to that, and I was looking at him like, "What are you looking at?" I mean, it was like just staring, and I was kind of like staring back at him, like, "What?" And he seemed European. I have no idea why. I thought, yeah, he's like Belgian. And I thought, why would I think he's Belgian? And just like a minute later, the woman that he was with was pulling him, leading him, and said, where is he? So they apparently had just come from the theater too. They had seen it, I guess. And she came up to me and she said, "Was that you?" And I made that mistake several times of thinking that, yes, that was me. And I find out they're thinking of somebody else. They're talking about somebody totally different. I go, oh. So she said, "Was that you?" And I said, "Did you see it?" Being coy about it. And she said, "Oh God, that was so funny. You remind me of my brother. It was just, this is so great. You were wonderful." Oh, and I said, well, thank you. And I'm thinking, God, there's something about her that looks familiar, but she had these little tiny spit curls, with plaster on, like she took a bathing cap off and her hair was just plastered down to her head. Just kind of an odd 30s flapper hairdo, kind of. But anyway, um, I said, my name's Bob. This is my girlfriend, Terry, and this is my friend, Roger. And she said, hi. She said, um, oh, why I'm doing this now. I'm Shirley McLean. I'm Shirley
Ah,
McLean.
that was
And I,
Shirley MacLaine.
yeah, and I went, no wonder she looked familiar. God, I just felt so silly. And I went, yes, yeah, uh-huh. and and her boyfriend, I guess, and I was like, hi, how are you? And you're like, yes, hello. And she said, oh, you were so great. And I said, gosh, well, thank you so much. And then let's go. And then they zip back to her friends over there. I I didn't. I just was so unused to that. I didn't. And then I would go to things like you go to a concert and then you find out that the band all knows you, and you think, what? It winds up that's back when it was VHS tapes, and instead of flying everywhere, most bands were all in tour buses, and the number one tape on the tour buses was Airplane,
That's
and they
awesome.
played it over and over and over. And I went to see my favorite, James Taylor, and it winds up that I said, God, James Taylor knows who I am, and so that blew me away. And I was always, I was, as I'm sure you can tell by the way I am, that I was incredibly shy. My whole life, I grew up, I was really shy. Plus, I was always being moved every 2 years or so to a new place across the country or wherever, or to another country. And so there's always been that kind of
Yeah.
fight going on. And it just astounds me that people would know who I am. So that changed everything. And it took a long time to. I still probably not exactly used to it, but it's odd.
I've never bumped into anyone who doesn't know who you are.
No, I bumped into a few, especially over here in Hawaii, and now that it's getting so far from when it came out. There's still a lot of young
It's
people that know it, but there are a lot of people that are older than them that never saw it. And over
we
here, they don't watch movies so much; they go to the beach. So,
we had a showing here just a little while ago, and everybody, it like people just rolling. It's just Airplane has such it's a perennial favorite. It's timeless,
yeah,
and
yeah, well,
I,
it
it's
still
amazing.
gets some people's their tickle bones. It gets them. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
All right, we'll go a little deeper with question number 4 then. If you had the opportunity to go back in time, give a little advice to your younger self, teens or 20s, what would you say?
oh, geez, where do I start?
Let,
Holy smokes!
let's say a little bit of advice. How's that?
A tiny, tiny bit of advice. The one thing that I probably would say, if I could say only one thing, is relax, take a deep breath before you answer. When someone asks you something, just relax and take a deep breath. Because I've always been kind of hyper and like an adrenaline junkie, I guess, just, and and the business breeds that into you too. I mean, that kind of adds to all of that. anxiety and the adrenaline and getting up for the job, having the energy to do it, working 24 hours a day, and you got to be on for that big scene at the end of the day. So you got to crank all that stuff up, and that makes it sometimes you bring that into your conversation. So if you stop, just take a deep breath, and when you're doing that, sometimes it's giving yourself a chance to think too, settle down, and then answer.
Hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's actually really, really good life advice. I like that. That's
Yeah,
something that I'm going to start doing from now on. You always give me a certain amount of zen when we talk.
I
I'm going
think
to,
I'm gonna work on this, going back in time and see if I can get a hold of my little self.
there you go. I
Is
think
it
you
too
could do
late?
that. No,
Yeah.
it's not at all. It's never too late.
Late.
All right, the last question, Social Place Fast Five. If you could choose anyone from history or not, famous or not famous, personal or whatever, with us or no longer with us, to have spend the evening with, who would that be?
Wow. Boy. Holy smokes. I guess the obvious thing would be, Jesus. You know, I mean, you can't
Okay.
get much heavier than that. Um, I would say maybe Aristotle, but I would not have a clue what he was saying. And I wouldn't know what Jesus was saying either,
Yeah, I'm
actually.
going to say I'm not. I mean, yeah, I'd
Uh,
assume he'd probably be able to fix that for you so you could hear it. But yeah,
Yes, right. That's right.
he might get around that
Also, it
somehow.
didn't come out the dot that you are here with me today. I really like that. Henry Fonda,
Henry
Abraham
Fonda.
Lincoln. Oh my God, Abraham Lincoln.
Hold on,
That would
Henry
be,
Fonda.
well, Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, and Gary Cooper were my four guys that I always used to think of, especially Stewart and Fonda, that I always thought of. Those are the kinds of roles that I could do
Hmm.
and that I'd like to do. Like, I didn't feel like I was physically or whatever. I wasn't that kind of actor to do Spencer Tracy role or a Jimmy Cagney role. And William Powell. Oh God, he's so amazing. But it didn't seem like that was the kind of I wasn't physically, you know. So I looked at those guys, and I as doing the characters that I would like to do. Mr. Roberts, which I finally got to do. Uh, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That to me is just maybe my favorite film of all time. Uh, I mean, just those are
Yeah.
the kinds of roles I would love to have been able to do. But then you have
Wow.
all these other actors that are just William Powell, the Thin Man, the whole Thin Man series, just knocks my socks off. He is so good. And then when he played his final role, I think, was as Doc in Mr. Roberts in the film version. And oh my God, he was as good at the end as he was in the beginning. And that's not really always the case. So I don't know. I mean, but Abe, boy, ugh, that would have been amazing. I think he would have
Yeah.
been fun to be around and fun to listen to.
Hmm.
And Mark Twain. There's another one. Boy, you got me. There's so many. I couldn't even pick one.
Fair
Yeah,
enough. Fair enough. Well,
yeah.
Bob, I am just so grateful. Thank you for coming back on the show. I'm honored. I always love it when we talk and chat,
Thank
and I
you.
always learn something. And now you literally have burrowed into my mind the stop and breathe. I'm going to.
I saw something on the cable news. I was watching the news, and this guy, which I can never remember his name. Eventually, I'll remember his name when no one's around to hear it. Um, he's a rap producer, and probably my least favorite sound, music in the world would be rap music. It's just not what I like. But he wrote a book on meditation. And the woman who I've always liked, and I like to watch her, but she frustrated me so much that day. She said, uh, He's here to promote his new book about meditation. And but before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you, whatever happened with Biggie Small? And he says, well, I don't know. I didn't really know them, and that wasn't. Well, when Tupac Shakur was shot, and when they did, what was that? He said, well, that really wasn't the crowd that I ran with. There was a different group. But what I wanted to talk about was the meditation. Yeah. But when they did, when such and such rapper killed this guy, or when they were threatening so and so, and he said, I didn't really, that wasn't my thing, but I'd like to talk about the meditation. Yeah. And then finally at the end of it, she says, well, it looks like we're out of time. And if I could reach through and throttle her, I would have gotten her. But he said, he looked into the camera. He said, remember to breathe. That's what he said. And she said,
Really?
yeah, fine, thank you. And now we'll be back after this commercial. And they cut away. And I thought, you ass, why did you do that? And I had just started trying to get back into making another attempt at meditating. And I'd sit down there, and this little gremlin would say, you're probably not going to have enough money to pay for your business. Would you shh? He's right. You're probably, would you shh? So these little asses were just, and then I would get so frightened and say, okay, calm down. And I would try to get calm. And the whole time, they're right there. And then they start right up again. Monkey brain, they call it, monkey chatter or monkey brain. And after seeing his thing, I got so frustrated, and I remember what he said. And I thought, okay. And I breathed in through my nose, and I was a little slightly congested. And so it was harder to breathe. And I was imagining the air going around everything to get through my nasal passages. And I realized after a little while, I was concentrating so hard on getting the air to go in there, those little jerks weren't around at all. And every time they would crop up or other thoughts would crop up, I would just stop and I would start to think about the breathing, just concentrating on the breathing. And by God, it worked like magic. And I give it all to that guy whose name I can't remember. And Diddy, Sean Diddy, no, it wasn't.
Oh,
Anyway, he was like, contemporary sort of, but anyway. So
wow.
then I would just tell people. And one thing that happened was I was building an addition underneath this deck that I had and filling this and making a little storage area room. And I was putting windows, with a whole bunch of panes of glass in it. And I couldn't find one to fit. So I just built the whole thing and got the panes of glass from Home Depot and put them all in. And I couldn't get this one thing figured out. It just had me baffled. And I would look at it and I would try to hold something up. I try because I build sometimes like I'm sculpting something rather than I'll draw plans, but sometimes you just go off. I meditated, and then I just felt really good. I went down and I just started working, and the whole thing was done. And I went, whoa. So it came to me without me realizing it when I was meditating.
Wow.
And now I find all these Navy SEALs that meditate, and that all these Rangers do. And so it was kind of a really nice, that was a nice little discovery.
That's
Breathe,
awesome. I love
that
that.
whole thing. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's a great lesson. I'll be thinking of it. And I just want to say again, thank you so much. It's the best gift you could certainly give me. I
Well,
loved spending this time with you, and I treasure your friendship. And thanks for
happy
sharing your stories.
birthday, my boy. I owe you a stout little lemonade,
Ah, there you go. Fair
and a
enough.
cupcake.
Fair enough. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening, Bob. I
Thank
really
you, Jeff.
appreciate it. I know everybody else does.
I appreciate it. It's fun being with you. And I just saw a little clip on YouTube. I was skipping through something, and there was Treat, your friend,
Oh,
who
Treat
I
Williams.
unfortunately never got to meet, but I thought, boy, I sure wish I could have met him. But I just saw him again. Every time I see him, I think about you and him being on the show with you and all of that. Yeah,
Such a wonderful, wonderful guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that was just a little thing. Every time you mention someone, you think about someone, or you bring them up in a conversation, then they are still alive. They're still with us. You know what I mean?
I love
And
that.
I thought, well, he's a good one to keep alive because he was a good person.
He really
Everything that
was.
I learned.
Thank you for saying that. That's so kind.
Yeah, just thought I'd remember that to you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Well, we
All right.
sure
I
had
will be in touch
fun
soon.
as usual. It's always a pleasure. So it was great.
We'll do it
And
again.
Barry Schiff was he wanted to pull a little birthday stunt with you, but we couldn't come up with anything. I kept telling him, "You're the creative one. I'm just the actor. You're the creative one." And so he was going to come back.
He's the one who originally connected us. I was out with
Yeah.
Barry over at the Legends event. Matter Travolta was there at the Legends event. He did a little film that he had just made and a whole bunch of other things
Wow.
there. Like Barry is the connector. Barry, if you're watching,
Yes,
thank you.
he is so great, and I could listen to him forever. He's got such great stories.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and his son Brian, absolutely fantastic. Two of the best human beings on the planet.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yep. Well,
Well,
take
go
care.
enjoy the
Happy
weather
birthday
there.
and happy flying and safe landings. And in car racing, they say keep the dirty side down. Uh, in planes, that sort of is the same.
Keep the same number of landings as takeoffs.
Oh, that's good. I like that too. Yeah. Don't just walk away. Walk away, leave it in good shape.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Well,
right. Have a great evening, Bob. Thank you so much.
thank you. It's good to see you,
Got it.
Jeff.
Nice seeing you too. Take care.
Bye bye.
Good night. And thank all of you for joining us and taking time out of your evening to join us here on Social Flight Live. We'll be back next Tuesday, June 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, with Tracy Curtis Taylor. She wrote this wonderful, wonderful book called Bird. She flies a Stearman. She's flown it around the world, except for the water parts. And I'm telling you that we're going to have a lot of fun talking with her. You can see this whole journey that she did in the Stearman. She's an amazing, amazing human being. Cannot wait for you to meet her. That is next week, next Tuesday, June 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then we have Cockpit to Cal the following week. June 10th, the following week, Cockpit to Cal with Brian Schiff. That's our great fun show where we've got Brian talking about it from the pilot's perspective and commercial pilot and flight instructor's perspective. I come in there with some mechanical stuff. We're going to be talking about taming temperature, all the different things from flying in warm temperatures and everything that happens during the summer to the fact of keeping your engine cool and you name it. We're going to be covering all the things that you need to know before summer really heats up. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon for Social Flight. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all blue skies.